Hey everyone, I need your help. I've been dating my girlfriend, Daisy, for 3.5 years. I met her through a dating site. I found her rubber duck collection, and her willingness to brag about it, nothing short of amazing. And when I showed her a collection of my own, we pretty much started dating, without having even met. But of course, we met, and hit it off quick. Seems like a lifetime ago. Things between us got serious, and we both agreed we'd start aiming for the next stage in life at the 4-year mark of our relationship. That means we're going to get married, and 1 year after that, start trying for a family. It is all because of this stupid agreement we made half-jokingly on our first date. "We'll date for a year, all casual-like," she joked. "And then we'll be the cute couple for the 2nd year," I added, just to annoy people. "Then we'll move in," she nodded. "That's our 3rd year. Then we'll get married, year 4. Kids, year 5. It was this dumb inside joke, and we've since planned every year up to our retirement. It morphed from a joke into a rough sketch of our lives together, and we've held on to it pretty well. We did move in together last year, and I've had plans to ask her to marry me on the day of our 4-year anniversary. But this is where it gets complicated. I don't think she will accept my proposal, and if that's the case, I believe she's going to die. We have to stay together. Let's take a step back. I'll try to explain. I'm half American and half Vietnamese. I was raised in Tomskog, Minnesota, just south of Fergus Falls, just north of St. Gall. My parents met when my mum was backpacking in Vietnam, in her early 20s, and my dad just kind of went with it. He was her guide through the entire country, and when it was time for her to go home, she just kind of brought Dad along. Fast forward a few years, my mum, Anita, was a nurse at the local high school while my dad, Vin, got a job as a firefighter. I was their only child. I spent most of my summers near Bin Chau with my grandmother. She lived by a lake and would spend most of her days fishing, listening to the radio, and cooking for the local restaurants at night. She cooked the best branded crite in the area, and tourists were always asking for her specialty. Yes, branded crite is a snake. Yes, she'd kill them with her bare hands. Even as I stared down live snakes, I'd never even flinch. I was safe. Nana was a badass, and she'll protect me no matter what. She taught me a lot, but the one thing that stuck with me was a saying she held very dear. A fair face may hide a foul heart. It was her favourite saying. Every time something seemed too good to be true, she'd tap her nose and recite it in Vietnamese. She didn't speak a word of English. Someone trying to sell you something suspiciously cheap. Tap the nose. Someone you don't know smiling at you from across the street. Tap the nose. No one would hurt her grandchild. No one. When I was 12, I spent my last summer in Bin Chau. Nana and I took the boat out. We were kind of fishing, but also kind of not. Her kind of fishing was just throwing in 2 rods and then falling half asleep with her face in a book. I'd adjusted. I usually brought a Game Boy out. She'd tolerate it, as long as the sound was off or I plugged in my headphones. She even played a few times herself, even though she didn't understand how I could memorize the controls. She'd just fallen asleep with a magazine when it started to rain. She didn't notice, but I didn't want my Game Boy to break. I reached across the boat to put it under my jacket when I lost my balance. I fell overboard, Game Boy in hand. I must have hit my head on something on the way down, as I don't remember much of what happened afterwards. The rain got worse, and I remember Nonna getting in the water to pull me up from under the surface. The world felt upside down, as if rain was being pulled up from the lake. I vaguely remember her worried face looking down at me as I broke the water's surface. As I laid on my back, rocked by the waves, I started to become aware of my surroundings. My mouth tasted like mud and seaweed. Raindrops were pushing into my eyes. Nana was gone. So were the oars and my Game Boy. All that remained was her magazine, wrinkled by the storm. I screamed for her to come back, but she was just gone. We were too far out from the shore. I couldn't make it back to land. My head was pounding, and my lungs hurt from coughing. I screamed and cried long into the night, but no one came. I was alone. I cried so hard my jaw hurt from the screaming, and as I curled into a fetal pose, I cried myself to sleep. I could see her in my mind's eye, at the bottom of the lake, reaching out to me. I almost froze to death. I don't remember the fishermen finding me or taking me ashore. I don't remember the first 2 days in the hospital, or the doctor calling my parents. I barely remember my uncle coming out to see me. My first clear memory was on the plane back home, where I had a panic attack and locked myself in the bathroom. I never could have imagined the calm waters hiding such horror, but, as Nana used to say, a fair face may hide a foul heart. I didn't leave Tomskog for years, not even for summer camp. My mum offered all kinds of places to go, and my dad tried to get me to visit his brother back in Vietnam. I just refused. All of it. I didn't want any more adventures or experiences. I just wanted to feel safe again. Even in the calmest moments of the day, I could find myself having a panic attack, always with a nagging voice telling me, a fair face may hide a foul heart. But being 12 turned to being 17, and my attention turned from Game Boys to girls. I started dating Mary-Ann. She was 1 year older than me and was planning to get a degree from DMU the following year, but knowing it was all going to end just kind of made it all the more interesting. We spent a lot of time together that year, and even considered trying long distance. To me, her sunny smile and brown hair was synonymous with summer love, and I just wanted to feel that for as long as I could. In the end, we decided to break up. At least, she did. It wasn't our unanimous decision. I blocked her on every channel I could, just so I wouldn't feel the pain of losing her. I tried dating other people in the following years, but nothing compared to Mary-Ann. Most of the women I met either tried to make me into something I wasn't, or were just using me, or I just didn't love them. Angela wanted to move in with me after a month just to get out of paying rent for her own apartment. Jessie just wanted someone to cook for her. Marla was a perfectly kind and caring woman that I just couldn't love. I had a few rough years, dating-wise, to say the least. The year I turned 21, my mum had a psychotic episode and died in the county jail. Long story, but it was the final nail in the coffin. I shut down emotionally. I'm not the kind of guy who stays friends with my exes. We're exes for a reason, and there's too much history there for it not to be awkward. I can smile, wave, and exchange some pleasantries, but I don't want to remain friends on Facebook, especially with Mary-Ann. Years after breaking up, she still came to me in my dreams, her smile warming me with a glow of summer love. My life was pretty much a one-way street. I got a degree in building engineering from Concordia University, go Stingers, and went from an intern to a junior position at a large architecture firm. We mostly design apartment buildings, but also the occasional novelty. Restaurants mostly. We were working on sketches for the restoration of a large theme park recently, but the project fell apart. Still, it was interesting work, even if I mostly got to do the grunt stuff. I was 26 when I first met Daisy online. A friend of mine had talked me into setting up an account on a dating site and, well, you know the rest. Mary-Ann might have been my summer love, but the thought of Daisy is what keeps me warm in the winter. All complaints and fights aside, I love her. I didn't think I could, but I do. But yeah, this is where it gets complicated. See, Mary-Ann died. She died about a year after we broke up, in her dorm room at DMU. The details around her passing are sketchy, but a few things stand out. She had lake water in her lungs and severe damage to her main arteries. The coroner had ruled the cause of death to be cardiac arrest, but others speculated that she'd been drowned and moved. Her roommate had found her. I'll never forget what she told the local newspaper. People don't just crawl into their beds and drown. I was rattled by it. I didn't want to bring it up with Daisy, as she has a bit of a jealous streak. Instead, I just kept it to myself. Over the coming months, the distant dreams of summer love turned into a nightmare. The nightmare is always the same. I'm sitting on a bridge, watching a dark lake. Droplets rise from the waters, floating into the air in a slow reverse rain, trickling the underside of my bare feet as they pass me by. The lake reveals a mass of white stones buried in the muddy bottom. Then the stones start to move. A chill crawls up the back of my spine as I realise that the stones are a mass grave of chalk-white bodies. Their limbs stretch and slouch, like warm rubber. A sour smell stings my eyes. The bodies wriggle back and forth like maggots, trying to get on top of one another. White, eyeless faces bump and grind, elongated faces wrestling to stay on top. In the moments before I wake up, they look at me in unison, bend their mouths open so wide their necks snap, and they scream without a sound. On the bottom of the pile, I see Mary Ann's brown hair sink deeper into the mud. Their screams make my bones itch, and as I lean over to scratch my feet, I fall off the bridge, head first. A hand brushes against my neck, trying to pull me back up. But it is too late. I have that nightmare at least once a week. Mary Ann's death disturbed me more than I thought, but I tried to keep up appearances. Over the coming weeks, I talked to her family and friends to find out more, and I uncovered something. Not only had Mary Ann died, but several of my exes did. Angela, Jessie, Marla, all dead. Angela had been in a car crash. Jessie died on a flight to San Diego, locked in the bathroom. Marla was hit by a train. It was all mysterious circumstances, and looking closer at each one just makes it all weirder. They'd found seaweed on the passenger seat of Angela's car. Jessie had snake venom in her blood. And Marla, well, she sent a cryptic text just before voluntarily stepping out in front of a train. Try Tim Ho. Foul heart. My nose itched as I read it. I've tried to push this all away, to just enjoy my time with Daisy. I've tried to ignore it all. I don't think this is all just a coincidence, and I think that somewhere, somehow, that Drain Lake is real. The lake where all those dead bodies pile up. I believe that one day, that pile will grow large enough for them to pull me down into the mud. I can hear the sound of wet flesh if I just listen closely. The noise feels like a tattoo on my brain. It is always there, no matter if I want it to or not. I try to shut it out with music and laughter, but it is getting harder and harder to smile. But here is where I turn to you. 2 months ago, Daisy cheated on me. It wasn't full-on sex, but there was touching and making out. She'd met an ex of hers when she was at a bachelorette party with her friends, and things had gotten out of hand. When I confronted her about it, she laid the blame on me being distant and weird. She'd found my odd searches and wondered why I was spending so much time looking up my exes. Instead of a discussion about our commitment to one another, it turned into an accusation. Sure, she had openly made out with an ex during a moment of weakness, but what the hell was I up to? I couldn't tell her even if I wanted. She's not going to believe me. I felt myself slowly falling out of love, but I don't want Daisy to go away. She is still my winter's warmth. I don't want her to die, and I don't want to feel her thin fingertips curling around my ankles at that bridge. We have to stay together. I have to prove her heart not to be foul. We have to work through this, and I don't know what to do. I think Nonna is trying to protect me, like she did all those years ago. I believe this is her still trying to drag me onto the shore, away from the lake I was destined to drown in. I just don't know if she is causing it, or trying to stop it. Things are getting urgent. I don't think there is much time. If Daisy leaves me, I don't know what happens. I don't think she'll accept my proposal, as things are today. Last Wednesday, as I got up to brush my teeth, I found something in the bathroom sink. An old Game Boy, smelling of mud and seaweed.